Okay, so I kind of just wanted to explain what we want in the research project and where to find it. So when you go into Google Classroom, um, you're gonna go to CodeForCare, classwork, and then down here there should be the class materials. This is where you find our Google Drive. So in our Google Drive, we're gonna have like guides and handouts. So it's gonna be a few of like the files that we're making. So the coding guide is going to explain what we want in the coded project. And then the general timeline is averagely what we're going to be going over every day. Project overview, this is like kind of like the main theme of the project, and I'll go over that in a bit. So let me open it. You have your sample solution, which is something that one of the people at Toru Guam Foundation have made for us. And then you have the written project guide, which is mainly what I wanted to go over today. So first of all, as we kind of explained in our first workshop, this is the project overview, where the main project theme is how can we help the people in Guam get healthcare when they need it. So the main idea is that like the people in Guam who lack healthcare information generally kind of like lack this information for one of several reasons, if not more. So for some of them, it's these cultural beliefs and superstitions. For a lot of them, it's the lack of knowing that they can get healthcare somewhere. And for others, it's just that they can't like access it at all. Like they just, even if they wanted to, they just don't have availability to. So it is your guys' goal to be researching a coded project that can help raise awareness for these kinds of people that only seek healthcare once it becomes too late or just can't seek it at all. So as you can see here, this is just the main rest of the project overview. Then this is written project guide. So the first thing that's in here is that we had some questions here for you guys to just kind of think about. I know I asked most of these in the Google Forms itself. So they're just kind of here to help you think about things while you get stuck. And then there's some keywords here as well. I know the last one that I asked you guys was education and accessibility. So I know I wrote this in like a questions kind of style. We wanted it more in like a research paper kind of style. So if you were to make a new Google document, that's kind of like how we want it kind of written out as maybe like, you know, the 3-paragraph style or something, where just like, or in this case would be probably 4 paragraphs, where the first one's like the introduction, then your main problem solution kind of thing, and then your coded solution and conclusion. So the first thing is like why you chose this topic, or like what topic you're gonna choose, right? So just kind of like asking you a bit more. It doesn't have to be personal, but just like if there's like a specific reason why you chose this project. Then comes defining a problem. So it is your guys' goal to be making kind of like finding a problem within the healthcare system. So I'm sorry that we completely forgot to record it, but we had that meeting with Miss Ashley from Tobu Guam on Thursday in the afternoon. So she kind of went over her own takes on all these words, and I know I made a few documents like with our own thoughts on it, so I can provide that to you guys as well. But the main idea was that it's for you guys to be finding a problem and making the solution on your own. So we're not necessarily giving you the specific problem you want to work on. That is for you guys to decide on your own. Then comes to describe your solution. So we kind of wanted this more in words, right? So like just saying that I want to solve this problem in this specific way, and like here's how it can be done. Here's like, it doesn't have to be related to the coded project at all, right? Just like saying that this is my solution. And then you want to explain how your code will in some way kind of like either work towards the solution, or maybe it is the solution itself, right? So as an example, if I wanted to spread information on like where I can get some food, right, for like food donations and food drives, right? So my solution is going to say like we can make a website that maps out all the food locations, and then that's how my code will demonstrate that solution. But on the other hand, if I wanted to talk about just like spreading information on kind of like when someone has diabetes, right? So maybe instead of spreading information, you also kind of want to talk about like ways that they can figure out if they have diabetes, right? And while the website can give general information, the solution may be a little bit more than that, right? It might also be like sending out people to kind of like check up on people, right? And that's not something that your website will be able to do, but it's still a solution. And that is still something that we want you guys to write down. Because again, half of this project will be for the code and half will be for this research. So when we mean by the best overall project, we kind of want us like a bit of a balance between the two, right? We want the ideas to be there and we want like a well-detailed problem and solution. And then for the code, we kind of wanted at least a start, teach you, because the main goal is to teach you guys how to build websites. But at the same time, we know that in 3 weeks, you're not going to be able to build something perfect. So we kind of just wanted you guys to at least start working on it and show your intentions with the website. And then comes like a reflection. So like kind of like in these 3 weeks, like what have you guys learned? What are your thoughts through it? And have you come closer to understanding your audience and everything? And then for 6, it's just like what are some keywords that you had about this project? What topics does it cover? So when I was talking about my diabetes example, I probably read something like diabetes, information spreading, stuff like that. And then finally, we wanted you guys to have some source of information. So if you wanted to talk about like, let's say like the statistics on like how many people have diabetes in Guam, right? Then that is some source of information that, you guys didn't come up with on your own. So we wanted you guys to source it out. Kind of make it like a more, not like a completely formal research document, but, at least something that we would have. And don't worry too much about this down here. We're joking about it, but we kind of like expect that it is very possible to be writing a research project that should probably span around 2 pages. And we're kind of noting that probably for what we think would be the best research project, right? We don't really think it's the most possible to be doing in 2 pages, in under 2 pages. And then again, this is just so that you guys don't make it like 16-point font and stuff, right? Don't have to worry about the margins. Don't really have to worry too much about the font. That is technically the formal thing to be writing in 12-point types. So I also want to go over the sample solution that we had. So this was provided by one of the workers that works in Todu Guam. So he works directly with people, and these are his own thoughts and opinions. So again, we didn't have him write the full research document, but you can kind of see how he wrote his outline and how this would be turned into the proper research project in the future. So you can kind of see how his topic was talking about providing access to care to everyone, regardless of socioeconomic status, and how this major issue, even given gave some anecdotes and everything. And you can kind of see how he's just talking about everything here. And he even split why he chose this topic, right? Because he's tired of seeing patients wait until a manageable chronic condition becomes an emergency. So you can kind of see like his desire to be working towards this problem. And then he defined his problem, right? So at the core of it all, Guam is facing a severe disconnect between vulnerable populations and preventive healthcare. So this is the problem that he is going to slowly work to fix. So you can kind of see how this is pretty broad. And then he kind of like breaks it down into all of like these smaller issues that leads to this major issue that he's trying to cover. So limited awareness of services, and then there's like social determinants and limited healthcare access. Then comes his solution itself. So I know in this case he mostly talked about the web and mobile application development. That's mostly because he knew that's what we wanted, but it was just kind of something we want to note that on the side he can even does talk about like how mobile phone penetration is high, like talking about like how they can get guidance, but we wanted a little bit more on like, what else can you do outside of just this like web project. And again, that does partially stem from the idea that this will be a board presentation for the winners. So we at least want you guys to know it's like something more detailed than just like here's a website, right? And then there's this explain how your code project will help it. So you can kind of like see how he broke down everything that he wanted to cover. And we know the idea is that like in 3 weeks he won't be able to implement all of this into, in his case it was a mobile app, right? But you can kind of already see how this is listing everything that he already knows he would want in it. So this is something like important that we want you guys to do as well, is to just list everything that you had intentions of doing, and then maybe like slowly working on towards like one aspect of this, right? So maybe what you guys end up finishing is only like step 1 and step 2, right? But the other steps are incomplete. And that's kind of fine with us, right? We just want to at least know what your ideas are, right? And like the main idea behind that, right, is if you don't have any ideas of where you want your project to go in the future, it's kind of hard to say that, it's a good project, right? Because it's like, it's pretty shallow in saying that, oh, I gave the information out already. That's all it was meant to do. So we kind of just wanted a bit of a layout on what you wanted it to become if you were given more time, more resource, and maybe more learning as well. And then finally, obviously, he couldn't write the reflection because he didn't do the mobile app himself. But we kind of wanted you guys to just write a small reflection on how you thought this project overview went as a whole, right? Maybe some concerns you had, maybe some things that you learned out of it, and maybe some things that you wish you could do if you had more time. Then you can even see how he had his 3 credible sources of information. And I know the keywords was made in 7 because he's the one who thought of this idea, but these are just like some keywords that he wanted to include to his research project. So that's kind of like the main idea of how we wanted this research project to go. And I'm not sure if I'm not sure if anyone had any questions on that, or if that made sense at all. If there's some things I can clarify on that. But yeah, that was kind of like the main idea of what we wanted for this research project. So